I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Nutlin, would you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement. All requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the Record in Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darian, would you read the mission statement?
Sure. The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta will not be joining us this evening. Mr. Del Greco.
Here.
Mrs. Downey.
Here.
Mrs. Norian.
Here.
Mr. Nutlin.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Darian.
Here.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Here, open to the public for agenda items only. Not seeing any. Just quickly, after the meeting, I want to meet with curriculum, PR, and policy because we need to set meetings for next week. I'm thinking Wednesday evening for policy and PR and possibly maybe next Friday afternoon. We'll have to talk to the superintendent, but we have to get those three done. We did BNG last week, personnel, and finance this evening. So let's set dates for those later. And moving to the superintendent's report.
Good evening. I'd like to begin this evening with a brief curriculum update. Our Math Curriculum Steering Committee, comprised of Oradell and River Edge teachers and administrators, met this week to finalize a resource to be used in the newly revised math curriculum that will be approved for use in fall 2024. This process began with us looking at 15 different math resources. It was whittled down to 4 resources, with teachers on the committee having the opportunity to use parts in their classroom as part of the decision-making process. This week, representatives from the 2 vendor finalists spoke with the committee to answer questions and model features of the resources. After calculating the quantitative evaluations and reviewing qualitative notes from both River Edge and Oradell participants, one program outscored the others by over 100 points. Next step includes sharing that resource with the curriculum committee, reaching out to districts about implementation suggestions, and finishing up the writing of the curriculum, which will be done before the end of this school year. In the area of language arts curriculum, as I shared earlier, we have chosen a staff developer, Patty McGee, who has worked with us before, to assist with revising our writing curriculum. We are finalizing the dates with staff for that summer work. Finally, with regards to curriculum, members of the administration met with upper grade, grade 4 and 5, specifically language arts teachers this week, as a bit of a think tank regarding what works in our reading curriculum in grades 4 and 5, what are the areas of strength, what are the areas we can strengthen, what are our non-negotiables in terms of what we don't want to give up. This work will inform the 24-25 master schedule and the curricular revisions for reading in the spring. You may have noticed on our social media that approximately 50 of our 4th graders participated in NAEP testing this week. NAEP stands for the National Association of Education Progress, which is often known as the nation's report card. School districts are chosen at random to administer NAEP testing. So we don't even pick which students do it. We give a class listing of all 4th graders to NAEP, and they pick randomly 50 students, 25 in language arts and 25 in math. The most frustrating part of NAEP is that we get no results at all. We're just helping out the state and the nation so that they can calculate how New Jersey students are doing compared to other students across the nation. If you have been following our Instagram pages, which I encourage you all to do, you'll notice that our 1st graders participated in an assembly sponsored by the PTA this week, where they had the opportunity to interact with different animals, including a skunk, which was a big favorite of everyone. In PE, our students had a chance to play hockey, and our 1st graders have been inspired by Van Gogh's Starry Night in the art room. In STEAM Lab, which is our newest Instagram page, our 5th graders are solving problems to find alternative ways to grow fruits and vegetables. I really find that these Instagram pages give us a really great look into what's happening in our classrooms and bring the words that we say or I put in my board update to life. Finally, this weekend is Odyssey of the Mind Regional Tournament at Milburn High School, and we will have 2 teams competing. I'm sure you join me in wishing the teams and their coach, Ms. Sham, good luck. I know I will be there, as I love going to an Odyssey tournament, not because I love to support our students, which is definitely one reason. 2, I actually enjoy the program and seeing what students create, but 3, it's like walking in the July 4th parade where I kind of feel like a celebrity. You may not know this, but Oradell is a bit of a celebrity in the Odyssey world. I don't actually wear Oradell clothing because I like to hear what they say, because people run to rooms when Oradell competes. So I'm very excited for this weekend, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Iapelli?
Yes, been working diligently on the budget, and we will finally get our state aid numbers at some point tomorrow afternoon. That's my report.
Thank you. Moving on to minutes, review of February 7th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Iapelli. And we have approval of January 24th. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of January 24th.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Yes. Committee reports. Mr. Darian, would you take administrative?
Yes, tonight we have 2 items, administrative items A1 and A2, that I would like to introduce.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. For the minutes, can we add lines under these for the votes? Just to note, A1, we are accepting, we're not affirming. Just the acceptance tonight. Any other questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Yes. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian?
Yes, all we have tonight is B1 for facility use. I'd like to,
Second. Sorry.
that's okay.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey. Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Yes. Curriculum, Mrs. Norian?
Yes, you got the update. Hopefully, the committee will be meeting next week. We'll set that date after the meeting today.
Mrs. Acosta is not here. Mr. Darian, would you take finance?
Yes, I'd like to introduce finance D1 through D5.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? We did have a finance meeting right before this evening's meeting, and we are much closer on the budget. We were at 800 grand short last time, and now we are down to 239, I think. Closer. We're getting there. We may be doing the first presentation of the budget at the next board meeting for the board. It's due, we have to do it by the 20th, so instead of changing a meeting date, we may just do it at the next one. We're going to see what the state numbers come in at tomorrow. Any other questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Yes, delegate report, Mr. Walsh?
I finally got a letter from the legislative committee, and we're going to have a meeting March 9th in Trenton. So,
Go get them, John.
So that's before our next meeting.
yes,
Can we approve Mr. Walsh's travel expenses under new business?
Yes.
That we, okay. Okay, we'll put your travel expenses on under new business. Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Yes, I don't know if it's appropriate. I have a question under building and grounds.
You know what, let's take it to old business. We'll go through our, since we're past it, let's just go to personnel, we'll do it under old business. Is that good?
Okay, yeah.
I'll second it.
So I would like to present F1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey. Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Watson-Nichols.
Yes, policy, Mr. Del Greco.
Working to schedule our next meeting.
And PR, Mrs. Downey, same? Same. All right, ditto. Open to the public. Come up, say something, we're going to miss you, come on. Oh, yeah, you forget it, never mind. You want us to bring you a mic? Okay. Mr. Butcher, you want to say anything? Sing a song for us? Okay. Okay, old or new business, so Mrs. Walker, what did you have for B&G?
When Mr. Darian presented, it was just B1. What about B2?
They're both under B1. It's B1, 1, and 2. It's just use of school facilities, so they just list number 1, number 2. It's still under B1.
So here, B1, and it's this,
Oh, yeah, but I see there's a 2 there.
just the second column, there's two organizations.
It just got cut by the page.
Oh, okay. Just checking you.
Keeping me on my toes, huh?
Give it to Greg. Give it to him.
Am I allowed to ask
I
a
would-
question?
yes.
Am I allowed to ask a question about the superintendent's report?
Of course.
All right. My question is about Patty McGee. And is she a big advocate of Readers and Writers Workshop?
Patty's actually only coming in for writing, and the work that she's going to be doing is to keep the units together. So it will have a taste of Writer's Workshop, but she's going to help us to delineate pathways to get to each goal, so to make sure that that's clear for teachers and it gives them the resources they need. And my big goal, and part of why Patty seemed to be a good fit, is every unit will also have a grammar unit in front of it. So it will be a mini grammar unit that will lay the foundation for the grammar work that students need to do in that writing unit.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a little bit of board, just a board, not update, but I guess procedure. So obviously, everyone knows that when we email, like if you get something from the superintendent or myself to the full board, it's just to read, you cannot respond to all. You can respond to the person, but it's part of the Sunshine Act, so you cannot respond to all. However, for committees, when something goes out to say anything from a committee, are the minutes good? Are you coming to the meeting? Respond to all, so all the committee members can either see what's going, because it's four or less, so that's not an issue with the Sunshine Law. So when you're responding to committees or attendance for committees, respond to all, and then it's a full board, just no responding to all. I forgot to mention that last time. Any other old or new business?
Odyssey of the Mind, Saturday.
You going?
Yes.
All right. Put in some good points for us.
No, I have the other job, the spontaneous.
Oh, we're not in
And
there?
they don't usually give me Oradell's class school. So I probably won't get either team. But
Good luck.
looking forward to it.
Good.
If there's no other, do you have anything else, Mrs. Walker? Do you have anything else? Okay. If we have no other old or new business, I do need someone to make a motion to go into closed session for student/legal issues.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
On the roll, Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey. Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Nutlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker. Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, we will not be taking any action afterwards, so everybody have a good week.
Oops, they're already out.
Thanks for coming.